Welcome to the first episode of Money Never Sleeps on the Outsider Trading YouTube channel. It is a wild day in the markets. We have a lot of news to cover from over the weekend. Silicon Valley Bank was sinking like the Titanic, and now the FDIC is reviving it. We have crypto prices going insane. The markets are irrationally exuberant right now. Talks of no basis point hike at the Fed meeting next week seems a little bit unfounded. We'll get into that momentarily. Please, as we get going, it would mean a ton to us if you'd hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, drop a comment. Kevin and I have been doing this show for a while, but we just started our own channel today, so very excited to have you all here with us. Nothing we say in this video is financial advice. We're a couple guys who love following the markets. We give our takes on them, but do your own research before making any buying or selling decisions. Kevin, we've said for a while this market is bullshit, and it is showing it to a big extent today. How are you feeling on this Monday?
Oh, I'm feeling great. I'm glad to see that, the market's bullish on the collapse of three financial institutions. And, obviously Jim Cramer came back last night and said that, we're back on. So I think that we're going to see some extremely, extremely bullish price action. And I'm being so fucking sarcastic right now.
Yeah, it is absolutely wild. We saw on Friday, we were doing our Friday show, and we were just looking at the VIX going absolutely nuclear. Yeah. It's on its way back up today. We are seeing, the crypto markets are going crazy. The traditional markets are relatively flat. Everything between no movement to up just under 1% on the NASDAQ. So not a ton of movement there, but man, crypto has gone insane. We had word from CZ over at Binance that they were moving $1 billion of stablecoins into Bitcoin, ETH, and their native token BNB. That has caused a huge run up in crypto prices. I think you and I are both on the same page here that this is to us just an awesome opportunity to exit these like some of these short-term positions. Me personally, I have my long-term holdings that I don't really mess with. I just slowly add to them when the prices take a big dip. I did that the other day. I made a little bit of money flipping some NFTs, put it into a little bit of Bitcoin when it was just around 20K. That's already, seeing a nice little pump up there. But for the most part, if you're into swing trades, momentum trading, this feels like the momentum has reached a fevered pitch and maybe a good time to take some profit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like on our last show that we did on Friday, I believe that we talked about a short squeeze because funding was super negative. And, we found some pretty good support at 19.5, 19.6, which is huge monthly support. So the fact that we didn't go under that or close in the daily on that, pretty good sign we're going to see a short squeeze. We went down super fast, but I think everything from the SVB and, the government and the Fed pretty much saying that we're going to take care of all the depositors, just send everyone into a frenzy. CZ, again, buying just nonstop Bitcoin, Ethereum, BNB. That's going to, whether you like it or not, that is kind of manipulation because a lot of people don't understand why the price is going up. Price is going up because they just bought a shit ton of all that in a short period of time. So, again, that's just going to drive the demand up because the price is going up. I think a lot of the move was already made. I don't think that there is much room to grow. I thought 23 was going to be a pretty good level where people would start to see a top, but I think we've extended past that. And I wouldn't be bullish here. Personally, I'm not bullish macro wise, but especially short term. I was bullish on Friday. I'm not bullish today. And, putting all this money into Bitcoin right now, you're seeing this pump. Retail is probably, FOMOing in right now. And we got CPI data tomorrow, and everyone in the market is pretty much pricing no, rate hike. That's just asking for exit liquidity, in my opinion. But we'll
get into that a little bit more here in a second. But we had the news on Friday that SVB was going down. We then later in the day found out that Circle, the creators of the US dollar coin, the second most popular stable coin outside of Tether, that they had about 8% of their money in SVB of their reserves. And that sent a ton of panic into USDC. We saw the price depeg from $1. It got down to as low as like 86 or 87 cents. We then saw people leverage trading a stable coin, which, you know what? If you took a 50x leverage position on USDC when it was 87 cents, you got a real nice return right there. That was absolutely insane. I took a little bit advantage of the fear. I had picked up some ETH when it was around $1,400 on Friday. When I saw the price depeg, I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Circle is such a strong company. Their balance sheet is very strong. And so I went ahead and moved that ETH back into USDC when it was depegged and made a little bit of a profit there. So, I'm not much, as you get into watching our show, you'll learn that we're not really day traders here. We look for opportunities in the market. We hold long-term, yada, yada, yada. But that was one spot where I was like, all right, this makes too much sense. I need to make a little bit of a move here. And it paid off. And we've seen since then, the US dollar coin repeg, everything's looking good there. And as crypto is pumping, we can talk a little bit more about the Fed now, I think. Like you mentioned, we have consumer price index numbers coming out tomorrow, producer price index numbers coming out on Wednesday. We heard a joint statement from Yellen and Powell about how they're going to help make sure that depositors are made whole. But at no point in that statement did Powell say anything about the fact that they're going to stop raising rates. And I get that if they raise rates, it's going to put more stress on the banks. I'm not oblivious to that fact. But at the same time, for the last year and a half since they started raising rates, it's always been the same thing. Our mandate is to get inflation down to 2%. Well, guess what? Printing more money to help the depositors and not raising rates is the opposite of getting inflation down to 2%. They're just going to send it back up. So we're seeing the numbers come out right now that 25% chance of no basis point hike, 75% chance of a 25 basis point hike. Over the weekend at one point we saw a 70% chance of 50. Now it would appear that 50 is off the table, but that could change just as quickly tomorrow if inflation comes in hot. So I would not want to be in Powell's shoes right now. They're walking this tightrope. It's kind of an unprecedented time where inflation is high, but if they continue to raise rates, it's going to put more stress on the banks. I don't really know what they're going to do. I think we will gain a lot more clarity tomorrow. I'm guessing that Powell is praying to whatever God he believes in, that inflation comes in under expectations tomorrow, because then he can justify not raising rates. But if it comes in hot, look out, man.
Yeah, 100%. And again, we've seen all the data. There's been tons of revisions in CPI and PPI over the past few months. We got the PCE data that came in above expectations last time, and it was an increase. So that's a spike in inflation there, and that's usually the data that the Fed likes to look at for when they, decide their rate hikes. And CPI coming around, if PCI already spiked, I'm pretty positive that we're not going to see any type of better looking CPI data for this month, unless we see a revision in 2 months or a month from now, and it's like, oh yeah, it actually came in hotter, but we just decided to raise rates 25, or we decided not to raise rates. And I think they made a big mistake back in February, only raising 25 points instead of going for 50. So if they decide not to do it now, and we also are starting to see inflation spike, but we're only doing this because the banks are taking a little bit of stress right now, I'm sorry. We got to get inflation down. And banks obviously made some bad financial decisions, not even necessarily irresponsible ones. It's just they bought treasury bonds at the wrong percentage rate, and the rates continued, and then there's just a run. They got to sell those at a loss, and then pretty much we saw what happened with Silicon, we saw what happened with Silvergate, and there's going to be many more that are going to face this. But I honestly think I don't know what the Fed's going to raise it. I think CPI is going to come in hotter than expected, and it's going to be obviously a rise in inflation, and it's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, they got to tackle inflation. We got to win this battle faster than sooner than later. Otherwise, again, we talked about it, I think 3-4 weeks ago, we're going to get that 1970s into the 1980, 1981 inflation data, where rates end up having to go to 20% to battle inflation. And that is not something I want to be doing 10 years from now. So please be responsible, Fed or Jerome Powell at this point.
I know that Jerome's going to be watching this show. So, get a good night rest, buddy. Got a long couple of weeks ahead of you. The expected numbers for year over year CPI, 6.1%. That's what we got going into tomorrow. Previous was 6.4. I would love to see it come in sub 6. That would be awesome. That would be telling me that we're going in the right direction. For core CPI, expected year over year is 5.5%. I want this to get over sooner than later, and it just feels like not doing anything at this meeting, even if inflation comes in hot, would just be kicking the can right on down the road. I don't think there's any way they can get away with getting inflation down to 2%. And some people are saying that like they're not going to raise it all the rest of this year. I think that is insane. Like they can't get inflation down where they need it to be by keeping the rate, sub 5%. Yeah. Right. Like if they keep it in the 4.5 to 4.75 range, that's just not going to get the job done. Like we've seen these decreases in inflation, they've been happening, and, it takes a while for it to kick in, and they didn't start raising 75 basis points, till the midway point of last year. But at some point, like it's going to have to keep going up. Like it was projected to need to go up to like 5.5% from a lot of the smart money. And to say that they're just going to stop now a full percentage point short of where people were projecting them to have to take the terminal rate to just doesn't make any sense to me. But at the same time, I'm not the smartest guy in the world. That's just my observation there.
Yeah, but you're a lot smarter than the people that are saying that they're not going to see any more rate hikes for the rest of the year, because that is just absolutely, like, no offense, but respectfully, idiotic.
Yeah.
It's just, you can't wish a market into existence. Reality is reality. Obviously, we can see the Fed or the government, intervene and try and prevent the inevitable from happening, which would have been the collapse of those three banks. But as of right now, they are taking care of Silicon Valley Bank. The Fed is obviously, like you said, Jerome Powell is praying that CPI comes in lower. But at the end of the day, they got to do their job. And everyone who is extremely bullish right now, I think, are going to be very upset when they see 2-3 months from now now we're in hyperinflation because you wanted the Fed not to pretty much raise rates in March. So, time will tell. Obviously, there's still a lot of pain ahead, in my opinion, but I don't see this playing out well if we don't get a rate hike.
Yeah, I feel like at this point you can have it one of two ways. Either the Fed can stop raising rates, and they can just admit that they've lost the battle of inflation, and we're just going to have to suck it up and deal with these higher prices indefinitely, or they can raise the rates and we're going to have to go through some short-term pain. Hopefully it doesn't last too long, but you can't have it both ways, in my opinion. It just does not make any sense whatsoever. So we gotta make up our minds here, folks. Like, what should we want to do? And I think Powell has made up his mind, and he has told us over and over what he wants to do, and that is continue to use the tools at their disposal, which are rate hikes and offloading their balance sheet. And that's what they want to do to combat inflation. So it's pretty straightforward in my book. That being said, the market is not taking it that straightforward and is responding differently. And I still think, being the way that I view the market at this point is we're seeing market makers, especially on the crypto side, being more than happy to let the price continue to go up. I don't know how much of this is retail. Like, is retail even have the money at this point to put into the crypto markets? I don't think so. And if this really is just, Binance putting money in and other people like following them because of excitement, then market makers are like, awesome, we get to sell our tokens for higher, and people are going to panic. And, we've said for a while that capitulation is coming. I think we're getting ready to see it, because I do think we're going to see a very steep move back down. People are going to be like, what the hell? I thought that my money was safe. I thought that we were on our way back up, but it's just not happening yet, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, first off, 75 basis points just for Elizabeth Warren. That'd be nice. But yeah, even like the USDC thing, like that was a huge panic. People were putting all their money into Bitcoin. We didn't see a huge pump from that. We saw a little pump. That's why I was surprised. I'm like, okay, I expected a short squeeze, but I didn't expect it to be this low. But from that panic, you can kind of get a gauge of how much money retail has left. They took whatever stables they were sitting on the side. They're afraid that they were going to lose their money, and market makers, in a way, or the bank, or whatever you'd like to call it, pretty much forced their hand into putting into Bitcoin, which is a risk asset. Obviously, can go up or down. So a lot more volume of that. A lot of people are probably terrified, and now you just built liquidity a lot lower or a lot higher, depending on where people were putting their positions. So obviously, they're just chasing liquidity at this point. They're trying to get every bit of liquidity that's left in the market, because there's not a lot left. And I think it was just a perfect trap for or a perfect play for a lot of these exchanges that just had the opportunity to take advantage of these people, their fear, putting it into something that they said, okay, even if the price goes up or down, at least I won't lose my value well, you're going to lose a little bit of value, obviously, as people start to pull out. And again, smart money is always going to be 2 steps ahead of retail. So that was just a interesting thing I also saw over the weekend.
Yeah, it really happened. I think more money went from USDC into ETH versus Bitcoin, because I think a lot of people who moved that USDC did it from, like via Uniswap, and so they were able to just quickly move it from USDC to ETH. And if you want to pull up the charts real quick, we can start doing looking at that. But you can see on the chart exactly when people started to, when the announcement from Circle came out and people started quickly moving their money to ETH. And then you can also see yesterday a big lineup when we found out that the government was going to take care of depositors, and it's been up only the last 48 hours, man.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. So let's go to the 4-hourly, and we can probably see that this is down here. This is March 10th, and this is in the morning, 8 o'clock. Yep, it just starts shooting up over the weekend. We get to a point where we broke above the 200 EMA on the 4-hourly. Again, if we look at the daily, it's a lot higher, but this is pretty much just one straight shot going up, especially if you look at the daily. Daily is like, look at that. That's insane. Does that look healthy to you? Doesn't look healthy to me.
Seems reasonable, and seems like we can definitely expect that to continue, right?
Yeah, it's almost weird. I kind of saw this on a macro view somewhere before. Let me see if I can find that on the weekly. Yeah, right here. Yeah, so again, the time will tell. Obviously, I think that a lot of this, like you said, a lot of people moved. It's an easy swap since they're on the same chain, USDC to Ethereum. Yeah, this just doesn't look healthy, but we'll get into Ethereum afterwards. I want to look at the DXY first. If I look at the DXY, we can see that it's been pretty painful for the DXY the past few hours and past 3 days, really. Again, we talked about retracement at some point. We were overbought for a period of time on the daily, but when I look at the DXY right now, we went straight up to the support level, at this resistance level. Obviously, we wanted to break above it. We didn't. We thought we were going to retest, maybe find some support at 104.66. Unfortunately, we crashed right through that. And again, this is nothing to say that the dollar is bad or anything like that. This is 100% on news and whatever fear is driven in the market. Obviously, Silicon Valley Bank, a lot of people were pretty happy to hear that they're getting bailed out. So that meant some rally for risk assets, obviously, because a lot of money just opened up. So people started dumping everything to risk assets, and people are also pricing in the fact that the Fed's not going to raise rates. So if they don't raise rates, obviously the dollar's going to go down, the risk assets are going to go up. It's just the way that it's going to trade. But when I'm looking at this right now, we crashed through pretty good support rate here at 103.69. That's the level of support that we saw. We had trouble breaking above it. We broke above it back in February. That was when we started making our progression to the upside. We got above the 200 EMA finally, but we crashed below it again. The thing that I'm really interested to see, though, is see how we're pretty close to oversold on the stochastic RSI. I think we're going to be oversold by the end of today. Obviously, look at that red candle. If we're not oversold by the end of today, then we got bigger problems. But looking at this, I think we're going to be oversold. We're probably going to find some support, as we're finding some support on the top of these candles where they closed in the daily. But I think that we're still primed for some good momentum to the upside. If I look at the weekly, you can see that we came down a little bit. However, if we look at Bitcoin and all those, we can see also that we are pretty overbought still on their stochastic RSIs. However, they kind of ticked up last night because the weekly closed a little bit higher than we all anticipated. So we're still pretty overbought on the weekly for a lot of risk assets. But if I look at this on the dollar, if we look at the weekly, this looks like one wave of a move to the upside. We're finding some retracement here. Once we find some support, we might even find it at, I don't know, if we're looking at the weekly, maybe around here, 103.385. Then would be oversold at that point, and then going into CPI and PPI, some of this data, maybe some of the sentiment around the dollar, some of the news that comes out ends up being a little bit more bullish for the dollar. Obviously, we'd be oversold at that point on the daily, still overbought on the weekly, but the good thing is we can stay overbought for a period of time. And then as a reminder for everyone, that monthly has plenty of room to the upside on the stochastic RSI. We saw that we were overbought for the longest time from October of 2021 all the way to October of 22. So we were overbought for a year. Does that mean we can stay oversold for a period of time? Yeah, absolutely. However, with the macro and everything that's going on, and we're seeing banks collapse, I don't anticipate this narrative of the government, the Fed saving everyone lasting very long. I think that's at some point reality is gonna check a lot of people, and hopefully hopefully they're on the right side of it. But when I look at this, I think the dollar has tons of room to go. It's just that's going to be a macro move as opposed to a short-term move. We'll just have to watch how the news plays out the next few days.
All right, let's look at BTC and then we'll go into ETH.
All right, which BTC pair should we do? Should we do the stablecoin or the USD one? Because they were very different this weekend.
Yeah, let's go with the USD one.
Yeah. Okay, so this is Bitcoin US dollar. Where is it? There we go. There's Bitcoin US dollar. This is on Bitstamp. But let's go to the weekly. All right, so we can see that we closed the weekly pretty high. Actually, I'm going to go to use Tether because Tether didn't have that much of a problem this weekend. Tether actually stayed extremely strong. So we came up here. We closed above, or we're currently above the 200 EMA. Let's see. Last night was the one where we closed there. Yes, 13th is today. Yeah, we closed. Where is he? We closed right around here last night, which is 22,426, which is okay. We can see that we wicked all the way down to the support level, though, 19.6, which again we said is the monthly support. That is extremely strong support. If we lost that, that'd be the second or third time that we've lost that. And that's a pretty good chance that we're going to go to 14K. And by pretty good chance, I mean it's pretty much written in the cards on the monthly that we'd have to retest the next level support. Can't bump your head on resistance for too long before you have to retest support that's lower. And 14K, unfortunately, on the monthly would have been the next level of support. So we'll see. Again, the month is not over. We're currently at 24K. We were at 25K in the middle of February. Then next thing you know, we were at 19.6 just a few days ago. So price can move fast. There's not a lot of liquidity to keep this market up. I think a lot of it is manipulation, like we said, with Binance. So if we take a look at this, Binance announced that they were going to start buying today. And if we look at the daily, Binance bought on this one. So pretty telling. Obviously, we see the volumes coming in. The volumes are a little bit higher. That might be because there's $1 billion coming into the market. Not all for Bitcoin, but probably a good amount. But we're seeing that we're going pretty overbought to the overbought territory pretty quick. Like, let's see, we're oversold here, and then in 2 days, today we're going to be overbought completely. We're going to be in this range right up here. And again, we have some important data coming out. But when I look at this is it's pretty chaotic. I think this is a lot of manipulation. Again, I talked about us having a short squeeze after Friday. Funding was just super negative. People were opening up shorts way too late. And now maybe people are opening up longs too late. So liquidity is going to go in the direction of where, they can liquidate, or leverage traders are going to get liquidated where they're not going long or not going short. The market's going to do the opposite of what the majority is doing. And obviously, when you have $1 billion to move the market to the upside and liquidate shorts, you got a lot more money when you sell to liquidate everyone that's going long. So I don't think for Bitcoin we're going to see too much more price action. Obviously, we saw some rejection here at 24.5, currently at 24.1. Again, I think this is 100% a lot of these exchanges. I don't see retail pushing this up much higher. I really don't. I think the fact that we saw Friday where did we close yesterday, that weekly? We closed that weekly at 22.4, I believe I said. Yeah, so from here to there, we closed at 22.4. Like, that's a pretty good move, but at the end of the day, that's still nothing too crazy to get excited about. I'm looking at this and I'm just like, that's just a sign that liquidity's drying up, and I don't know. I just don't buy this narrative. Even when I look at the volumes are pretty big in certain areas, like obviously Silvergate, but the volumes beforehand were just dropping off slowly. So that just tells me that all it takes is one big wallet to either buy or sell to drive the price in any direction that they wanted to, and the price will pretty much go. If we look at the weekly, the 50 and the 200 are pretty close. This is on Tether, so obviously we got the death cross on the BTC USD pair, but if we get another test down to here, it's a good chance this 50 is just going to go right below this, and we have another death cross on another Bitcoin chart. And again, I think that'd be closer towards the end of the month. That way we get that close below 19.6. And like I said, close below 19.6, that'd be, let's see, below it, broke above it, below it, broke above it. We broke below it again. I think we might retest it, but I don't think we're going to go above it. I think we're going to go down to 14K. So that's what I'm looking at for Bitcoin. Again, tons of manipulation right now. Not necessarily a lot of bullish structure, in my opinion. Whenever I see green candles just go up exponentially, you know that you're going to see red candles follow very soon, just a matter of time. And nothing too crazy about any of this other than that.
Okay, we can take a quick little peek at ETH, and then we'll wrap it up.
Sounds good. Again, ETH very similar. shot up a shit ton over the past few days. I didn't expect this one to shoot up that much. I was expecting maybe like 15.5, maybe close to 16. We're at 16.75 and it shot all the way up to 17.04. Very interesting. But if we look at this, let's see if I can pull up a parallel channel or something. Let's go to the 4 hour. Yeah, so I don't know if this is necessarily a bear flag right here, but we'll check it. Go from here. Yeah, probably not. I don't like that too much. Regardless, I think that there's tons of manipulation. Again, Binance was buying tons of ETH, BNB, and Bitcoin, but we broke above the 200 EMA on the 4 hourly. If we look at the daily, we are way above the 200 and the 50, and we did it super fast. So that's a fast breakout. We look at the stochastic RSI; it's following pretty fast too. That's going to be overbought by the end of today. If we look at the weekly is overbought completely, and we're just kind of like hovering over this 200 EMA. So we've went under this 200 EMA. We came above it. This is very similar to like the 19.6 level for Bitcoin. This 200 EMA is pretty much telling us whether we're going into a bull or a bear market. The longer we stay above it, it's easier it is for people to say that we're in a bull market. However, again, one more pump straight down to here where we were 13.68, and then we stay down there. We just don't find the money, the liquidity to push us up higher. We're going to retest at 13.38, and this 50 EMA is going to follow, and we're probably going to cross this 200, which would be another death cross for Ethereum. I don't feel like a lot of altcoins right now are making a lot of sense. I think that they shot up exponentially just on the hopes, like XRP too. That's another one where it was dumping tons and then it started to shoot up again. I think that people are just hoping that this market goes up. But as we've seen over the weekend, we saw how much XRP was being moved from wallet to wallet. We've seen how much Bitcoin, how much USDC is being moved. Tons of like not even like small amounts. We're talking like $100 million worth of these assets are moving. Is that institutions? Is that, the guy who works as a taxi driver down the street from you? I think it's institutions. I don't think he's got $100 million worth of XRP. I think XRP or Ripple Labs has $100 million. But point is, this seems very manipulated. It seems like there's a lot of money going to the exchanges. And I think that over the next few days, we're going to get some reality checks. This is just a great opportunity to sell, like you said. If you are in that position, I think that we're just sitting on a house of cards, as we've been sitting on a house of cards for the past year. So be interesting to see. But again, alts, I think, are probably going to take this fake out and see some blood once the market comes to its senses.
Yeah, I guess for me, the only bullish case right now is a lot of people, and I think especially those who were still in the market, like the retail people like you and me, well, me who's still being in the market, we're just like, you know what? I don't want to keep my money in a bank. I'm going to keep it, in crypto. I'm going to self-custody that. And that to me is like the only really bullish thing right now is, I don't think we saw many people who weren't in crypto take this as a sign to move their money from banks into crypto. I think it's people who are already in crypto putting more back into it because they wanted to remain safe there. I think the majority of people and the people who we are going to need to come into the market to retest all-time highs, so sometime in the future, are like, oh, the bank is fine, FDIC covered it, or if they even I'm sure plenty of people didn't even know this was going on. Right. Like, oh, FDIC covered it, I'll be fine, I'll just keep my money in the bank. Whereas the people who are already believers in crypto are like, I got to move the rest of my money out of the bank. I'm going to put it into crypto. I'm going to put it on a ledger, and I'm going to forget about it because I don't trust any of these people to manage my money, which I don't think is the worst idea in the world. But I think that's probably the only bullish thing from a non-institutional standpoint.
It's not the worst idea in the world, but it's also the idea that everyone wants, because if you put your money on, onto an exchange, you buy your Bitcoin, you move it off to your hardware wallet. Well, your USD that you used to buy into is on the exchange now. Then, it's gonna be pretty hard to sell at the value that you bought it in it, and you're probably gonna take a loss on it, even if you do move it back. But it's just, again, liquidity going right to the exchange, right where they want it. And that's the dangerous part, Obviously, you're going to take some bit of a hit, but at least your money's safe. If you do self-custody, you can move that asset whenever you want. The only problem is you're sacrificing the US dollars that you could use to buy a lot lower because you don't trust the banks. So again, it's like what we talked about last time. Where do we put our money right now? It's very scary. Yeah. Do I trust banks? No, not at all. But at the same time, I don't trust having any risk assets right now because I'm not delusional to the point where I don't think the Fed is not going to raise rates. And I also know that there's a lot more banks that are going to be going under. They can't bail them all out. And even worse is the fact that if they don't raise rates, we're going into hyperinflation. So there's a lot of stuff on the plate for the macro outlook. I still think that unemployment is going to shoot up, and we still have consumer credit. So, there's a lot to be thinking about right now, and it's kind of scary, and you just can't panic. That's the one thing. You cannot panic. You just have to stick with your conviction and, just survive. You got to survive to the point where we just pass all of this.
Yeah. I mean, let's look at it. Let's look at the bull case. Things are going to shit, so the Fed may not raise rates. Let's look at the bear case. Literally everything else, right? Inflation's still high. Job market's still hot. Debt incredibly high. Like I'm sorry, there's not really any reasons to be bullish at the moment. And maybe that changes. Maybe we get a few good data readings the next few days, and the Fed feels confident in pausing. And maybe the 75 basis point hikes they made last year are going to be good enough. But I'm not convinced. So we're just going to have to see all this play out. But that is going to wrap it up for our first episode of Money Never Sleeps. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We are going to be doing shows Monday through Friday, some live, some recorded. So make sure you have notifications and everything on so that you can see when we're going live. Want to have as many people as possible join, share their thoughts, drop some comments, all that good stuff. So please, once again, if you haven't yet, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel. It's very easy and very quick, and it helps Kevin and I a ton. But thank you for being here with us today. We'll be back tomorrow. Have a great rest of your Monday. Stay safe. And, God, let us have a decent CPI reading tomorrow.
Take care, everyone.